What's going on, Tamers? So, EX02 Digital Hazard for Digimon CCG came out at the end of December, and for a ton of reasons, mostly quarantine related, because, you know, don't leave Japan or you have to quarantine for a billion years, have stopped me from actually getting my hands on the cards and playing with them. But I finally had a chance to grab some boxes, open up some stuff, put some decks together, and actually play test, and man, I want to start going over some of these decks because they're pretty fun. The first one that I'm going to go over in today's video is actually going to be the yellow Sakuyamon deck that came out, and man, there's 1,000 ways to build this deck, and every single one seems new and just fun and very different from the others. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce my variant, which is a yellow-red Sakuyamon deck using the plug-in options as kind of an engine. You know, the red cards as removal, and then Sakuyamon is kind of your way to cycle through the deck and get your plug-in cards to essentially win the game. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's take a look at Sakuyamon red, yellow, red colors. Okie doke. So starting off with the eggs as usual. This time I actually have decent copies of all the eggs that I need for this deck, and it's simply 4 copies of the EX02 Pokemon that came out that basically support the deck. So you can take a look here. I got the parallel rare. Check that out. Basically, whenever you play a 2-cost or higher option card, you can draw 1 card once per turn. Okay, moving along to the level 3s, I've got 4 copies of the Renamon from the Digital Hazard set, as you'd expect. She is a searcher, which means you get to open up top 4, and you can grab 1 Digimon from her line, whether it's Cubimon, Taomon, Sakuyamon, as well as 1 Rookie Tamer, and add 1 of each to your hand. Additionally, on Inheritance, whenever you play a 2-cost or higher option, you can gain 1 memory. I don't know how I got the alt art cards for this, but I just ended up drawing most of them, which is, you know, never a bad thing. A little bit of a flex when I play this deck too. Okay, moving along in the level 3s, I've got 3 copies of the ST3 Patamon. So this guy's great because whenever you reduce a Digimon's DP to 0, you gain 1 memory on Inheritance. This deck focuses on not only generating and grabbing the plugins for Sakuyamon, but also on reducing your opponent's Digimons to 0 to control the board on their side. And this guy fits in really well. So this is one of those rare times where I break my own deck building rules. If you want to know more about what those are, how I build decks, I have a video that I've put together about that, from basic deck building for the Digimon TCG. You can take a look at that there. But I usually like to include more than 8 level 3s in a deck, but this time for this deck, I've only included 8, and there are reasons for that. And it's because I know that I can somehow get around not having level 3 very often, and we'll take a look at that when we look at the level 4s. Okay, moving along to our level 4s, I've got 4 copies of the Digital Hazard Cubimon. On Digivolve, she's also a searcher, lets you look at the top 3, grab a plug-in, and add to your hand, and the rest of the cards go to the bottom of the deck. And then on Inheritance, whenever you play a 2-cost or higher option card, you can reduce one of your opponent's Digimon by 2,000. So this works great not only for the plugins, but also for other cards that are options. So I did say that this deck is a red-yellow deck, and so far you haven't seen any of the red cards, so this is going to be the first one. I'm going to have 4 copies of Dinohumon. Dinohumon's nice because of the Inheritance effect. Whenever you attack, reduce one of your opponent's Digimon's DP by 1,000. It's just good for finishing off Digimon that you can't clear fully with some of your other DP minus effects, or those pesky level 3s that have really good effects that don't swing. This is a great way to take those out. Alright, I said before that I break one of my own rules and that I only include a few level 3 Digimon in this deck, and one of those reasons is because I have 4 copies of the level 4 Akuiramon. Akuiramon is nice because if you have a yellow Digimon somewhere on the board, then you can play this card for -1 of its normal cost, which means you can play it for 3 like you would play a normal level 3 as well. On attack, you can take one of your opponent's Digimon that has 5,000 DP or less and delete it if you have a yellow Digimon on the board, and because most of this deck is yellow, you get to certainly take advantage of that effect. Alright, moving along to the level 5s, I've got 4 copies of the EX02 Taomon. On Digivolve, she allows you to play a Rookie Tamer from your hand for free. Always good because this deck does need Tamers active on the board to really get its engine going. And then additionally, in Inheritance, once per turn, if you play a 2-cost high option card, you can reduce one of your opponent's Digimon's DP by 2,000. So you can start to see the minus DP effects really stack up in this deck, and then being able to use Akuiramon to kind of finish off anything that you can't reduce to 0 permanently. So I did mention that getting a Tamer out in this deck is actually quite important, and for that reason I run 2 copies of BT2 Rise Greymon, allowing you to play a yellow Tamer for no cost on Digivolve, but you don't get any on-play effects. Luckily, the Rookie Tamer doesn't have any on-play effects, and so this is perfectly okay. Additionally, if you have 3 or more yellow Tamers, you can gain Security Attack +1 with this Digimon. Although that's pretty rare. It does happen, and so yeah, I have it there just in case. So rounding out our yellow-red fusion, we've got 2 copies of Shilfmon, who came out in BT8, but didn't really get a lot of shine then because there wasn't a good archetype that fit it. But I think here when we have the yellow-red together, it works pretty well. So if you normally Digivolve it, you can reduce one of your opponent's Digimon's DP by 5,000. And then if you Jongers Digivolved it, you can destroy one of your opponent's Digimon who is 5,000 DP or less. This is super useful for annoying 10,000 DP Digimon, Gatekeeper. And yeah, on Inheritance, it also allows you to destroy one of your opponent's Digimon who has 5,000 DP or less. So this, combined with Sakuyamon, combined with the DP reduction, really helps the deck to just keep removal strong. All right, the star of the show, the star of the deck, we've got 4 copies of the Digital Hazard Sakuyamon. She's great on Digivolve, lets you make this Digimon active again, as well as grab a plugin from your trash and then add it to your hand. And then anytime you will play a 2-cost or higher option card, you can reduce one of your opponent's Digimon's DP by 3,000. So again, more of that DP reduction effect seen across the deck with this card as well. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the options, as the plugins are really important to the Sakuyamon archetype. These cards are going to be pretty important to the deck overall. So first off, I've got 4 copies of the Super Evolution plugin S. It allows you to draw a card and then Digivolve into a Digimon in your hand who has a Digivolution cost of 3 or less. Additionally, in security, whenever it's checked, you can look at the top 3 cards of your deck, grab any Digimon you want, and then add it to your hand, as well as add this card to your hand afterward. So in every situation where this card is played, you're going to get at least 2 cards off of it, which is great. Oddly enough, this is probably the best plugin that was released, so keep 4 copies of this in your deck at all times. Also, as a caveat, whenever you have a Tamer out on board, you don't have to worry about the color requirements. So as this deck is yellow and red, and this is a green option, if you have a Tamer out on the board, it no longer becomes an issue. Looking at some of the other plugins in this deck, I've got 2 copies of the blue high-speed plugin D, which gives one of your Digimon jamming, and then they also cannot be blocked by your opponent's Digimon, which is great. I think a lot of decks cut this card, but considering Sakuyamon allows you to unrest, I want to get the full value out of that. So my idea is to basically have a level 5 on the board, like a Taomon, use the plugin D on it, let it swing with jamming, and then play Sakuyamon, Digivolve, and then let her unrest as well. And then potentially get the plugin back. On security, this card allows you to draw 1 card and then add this card to your hand as well. All right, so rounding out the rest of the plugins, I've got 2 copies of the red attack plugin A, which gives one of your Digimon security attack +1. Additionally, whenever it's checked in security, you can go top 3 cards to your deck, grab a Tamer card and add it to your hand, and then add this card to your hand as well. All right, keeping up with the option trend, I've got 2 copies of Yellow Memory Boost. Wow, blast from the past here. I'm pretty sure most folks know what this does. It allows you to look at the top 4 cards of your deck, grab a yellow Digimon card, add it to your hand, and then delay on a later turn, get memory +2. This card's great. I think it's awesome with the Sakuyamon line, especially considering this is a 3-cost option card, which means you can get this card played for 3. You can, in a lot of cases, reduce your opponent's Digimon's effects because of the Sakuyamon line, and then later on get the refund of 2 memory. So it's like 1 memory for a bunch of different effects. And so I really like this card in the deck, as well as it allows you to search out some of the level 3s that you might need if you're having a hard time drawing them out outright. And finally, for the options, I've got 2 copies of Breath of Wyvern. Sometimes you just need to clear a Digimon, full stop, and this card lets you do it. Drop a Digimon's DP by 15,000, and it is a 2-cost or higher option card. So if you have your Sakuyamon line on the board with some of those removal effects, by playing this card, you can allow those effects to reduce Digimon's DP by either more or reduce other Digimon's DP on the board, allowing you to take out more than 1 target with this card sometimes. All right, finally at the Tamers, and because the plugins require a Tamer, the Tamers for this deck are super important. The first one we're going to have is going to be 4 copies of the Rookie Makino that you need for the deck that were introduced in Digital Hazard. She is a minimum 3 memory Tamer, allowing you to always start the turn at 3 memory, and then additionally, whenever one of your Sakuyamon, Taomon, Renamon, Cubimon, Digimon attack, you can rest this Tamer and play a 2-cost option plugin from your hand for free. This is super useful in later games where you have tons of these out, and then you've got a couple of plugins in hand. You can use some combinations, for example, 2 attack plugins and then a jamming plugin to really just eat away at your opponent's security. So this card's super useful, and then of course on security, play this card without paying its cost. I don't know why I got all of the alternate card arts for this deck, but I ended up pulling them, so maybe it was fate that I had to build this. And finally, the last 2 cards in the deck and the last 2 Tamer cards in the deck are going to be 2 copies of Miyako Inoue, who allows you to, at the start of your main phase, if you have a red Digimon on board somewhere, you can gain +1 memory, and then if you have a 2-color Digimon attack, you can rest this Tamer and destroy one of your opponent's Digimon who are 3000 DP or lower. And so that's the deck. That is the yellow-red mix for the Sakuyamon line that came out here in Digital Hazard. Let me know your guys' thoughts and comments below. I thought about some other texts and some other options for the deck. For example, the white Chimeramon that came out in BT8. There's a case to have some nice wide board clear with his effect using, white, yellow, and red colors on him. There's also a bunch of other stuff. I think that you can optionally just put the plugins in your normal yellow decks, and because they're so Tamer-centric, get the full value out of them as well. So yeah, what other kind of Sakuyamon lines or builds have you guys been seeing, or what kinds would you like to see in the future? And if you have any ideas for future deck building videos, let me know in the comments below as well. I've got a ton of stuff to go through for Digital Hazard, so I'm always taking suggestions. Anyway, do me a favor before you guys get out of here, hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the next one. Be good.